Hey Pilgrims, Pastor Craig, Horton Congregational Church. Well, here we are on Mother's Day weekend, and I decided to give mothers a break. Instead of watching my ugly mug for all this video, we'll watch this peacock over here by the old corn crib as he does his best to woo the affections of one of those hens that are flying around or walking around and not paying an awful lot of attention to him right now. But anyway, people seem to really like to watch the peacock, so I thought here on Mother's Day we take a bit of a break from my standing in front of the camera and turn the camera the other direction. You can see what a courting peacock is really all about. As we're talking about Mother's Day, of course, we want to look at a couple of scriptures, and we'll see if we can't keep that peacock in the frame. Look at a couple of scriptures. You know, one of the most common scriptures read on Mother's Day worship service is Proverbs 31 that talks about a capable wife and goes through a whole list, a whole litany of things that she is about, from being good for her husband's business to keeping her kids and family clothed in the cold weather, and how ambitious and productive she is, and just an awful lot of things that are found there. And it's pretty common for us in church to read that Proverbs 31 on Mother's Day. But you know what I find interesting about that particular scripture is it's an awful lot of worldly kinds of successes. A lot of things that are talked about there have to do with the kinds of success we would expect to see here on earth, and don't point an awful lot heavenward directly anyway. And you can see that peacock working his tail feathers the way he likes to do, to see if he can't be impressive for that little white hen right there. Anyway, so the scripture I'd like to look at, though, comes from 2 Kings in chapter 4. And it's about the Shunammite woman and Elisha. And the story goes like this. It seems Elisha traveled to the village of Shunem one day, and in Shunem lived a wealthy woman who invited him to come have a meal with her and her family and her husband. And so he did, and it got to be kind of a habit over the years that every time Elisha would go to Shunem, he'd stop and have a meal with this wealthy woman. And the wealthy woman said to her husband, said, you know, I perceive that this Elisha dude is a man of God, and I think we ought to build a room for him up on our roof and furnish it with a bed and with a desk and with a lamp and a chair and make him comfortable here so that when we invite him, he can stay a little bit longer and enjoy himself. And so they did. And that went on for some time. And Elisha would stop and visit the Shunammite woman and her husband and share a meal with them and stay in this room that he'd prepared. Well, Elisha had a servant who helped him along and spent quite a bit of time with him. Gehazi was his name. I'm going to turn the camera here. We've got another peacock right over here who's decided to join in the show. So we'll take a little bit of a look at him. He's in the shade. But anyway, so one day Elisha said to his servant, said, you know, Gehazi, we ought to see what we can do for the Shunammite woman. She's been so kind to us. And call her up here. And she came up to the room and on the roof. And Elisha said, you know, what can we do for you? Can we mention your name to the king or to the military commander and get you in some good stead? And she goes, no, that's not really important to me. I live a peaceful life here amongst my people. And so Elisha and Gehazi talked for a while what they might do for the Shunammite woman. And Gehazi said, you know, she doesn't have any kids, and her husband is old. You know, maybe we could do something along that line. And so sure enough, Elisha called her up to the room again and said, you know, he said, about a year from now, I think you're going to have a child. And the Shunammite woman said, oh, man of God, don't tease me that way. You know, my husband's old. I don't expect that to happen. But time passed, and sure enough, about a year from that time, she bore a son and started to raise that son and loved him dearly, of course. But it so happens that one day the son was out in the field helping his father as they were harvesting or planting, I don't know, fitting the field. I'm not sure what they were doing in the field. But anyway, the son grabbed his head and said, oh, my head, and it hurts. And the father said, carry the boy up to his mother and so he can be comforted. And he went up and sat on his mother's lap till about noon, and then he died. And the Shunammite woman took her dead son up to the room of Elisha on the roof and put him on the bed and called her servants and called her husband and said, you know, prepare a donkey for me and let me go find the man of God, because our son is dead. You need to take care of it. It'll be okay. and told her servant, said, don't stop for anybody. Don't slow down unless I really start complaining, and let's go find the man of God. So they took off, and as they were approaching Elisha, who was on Mount Carmel, as they were approaching, Gehazi saw the Shunammite woman coming and said, look, Elisha, there's a Shunammite woman. And Elisha said, well, go greet her, find out what's going on. And the Shunammite woman, when Gehazi got there, wouldn't really even pay any attention to him. She just kept going straight towards. She goes, everything's okay, and just went to find Elisha. And when she found Elisha, she fell at his feet, and Gehazi tried to keep her from grasping hold of Elisha's feet. And Elisha said, no, she's in great grief. Let's find out what's the matter. The Lord has hidden it from me. And the Shunammite woman says, man of God, I told you not to tease me. You gave me you blessed me, and I was given the son through the power of God. But he's dead. He's on the bed in your room on our house roof, dead. And Elisha said, Gehazi, take my cane and go over and go as fast as you can. Don't let anybody slow you down, and lay my staff on the face of the boy. And the Shunammite woman says, no, I want you to come. I'm not going to go without you. And long story short, they go to the house, and Gehazi gets there first with the staff of Elisha and has no luck in raising the boy from the dead. But Elisha gets there and lays on the boy's body, and the warmth comes back to his body, and Elisha gets up and walks back and forth to and fro in the room, and the boy lays back down on top of the boy again, who sneezed 7 times and awoke, came back to life. Well, we don't hear any more about the Shunammite woman for a while, but if we go to 2 Kings chapter 8, 7 years later, she shows up. It seems that after Elisha brought her boy back from the dead, he had sent her off into the land of the Philistines to live, because, as we all know, Elisha was going to call a famine in the Israelite area. And so what we find in 2 Kings chapter 8 is that 7 years has passed, and the Shunammite woman comes back to her home and finds it's occupied by somebody else because she's been gone, and goes to find the king in order to have someone appeal to the people nearby and see if she can't get her land back. And it just so happens Gehazi's talking with the king at the time the Shunammite woman comes up, and king has asked Gehazi what wonderful things Elisha has done. Please tell me the stories of Elisha. And he goes, well, he brought a young man back from the dead. And in fact, he says, here in the courtyard now is the Shunammite woman. And the king, so impressed with what had happened, grants that she would have an envoy that would go in her stead and get her land back. So what I like about that story when we talk about it on Mother's Day is the Shunammite woman and her dedication to the man of God. When we look at the Old Testament prophets, often we are given a likeness of Christ. We are given an example or a type or a simile or a metaphor of Christ in many of the Old Testament prophets. And we see it with the Shunammite woman, her reliance upon the man of God for everything that came to happen for her son, for her dedication to him, for the fact that she knew that he could bring her son life and could restore her happiness. And that's what Christ does for us, you see. And that's what I like as a mother who is dedicated to her children, dedicated to praying for her children, to getting her children to church and to Bible school and to Sunday school. For a mother who is not is typified in Proverbs 31, so concerned about material wealth and material happiness